It was a bright Saturday morning in the beautiful city of Abuja. Tunde was in a rush to meet his friend at the mall when he bumped into a beautiful young lady, spilling her ice cream all over her floral dress. She gasped, eyes wide with shock. Are you serious? Tunde stuttered out an apology, grabbing a handkerchief from his pocket. I am so sorry. I wasn't looking. The young lady let out a frustrated sigh. But then, when she took a good look at him, he was tall, with warm brown skin, and he looked kind. It's fine, she said, dabbing at the stain. At least I tasted it before it spilled. Let me make it up to you, Tunde blurted out. I'll buy you another one, please. She hesitated, then shrugged. He got to know her name as Ifeoma. They talked like they had known each other forever. They exchanged numbers, and from that day, they became inseparable. Tunde would surprise Ifeoma with flowers, sometimes fresh roses from a Wuzetu vendor, sometimes tiny white flowers he picked himself on his way to work. She kept every single one, pressing them between the pages of her sketchbooks. Ifeoma, on the other hand, loved leaving little notes for Tunde inside his laptop bag, under his pillow, even in his car. They had weekend rituals, long drives to Buhari just to eat suya and drink palm wine, watching movies at the cinema, dancing to old school R&B in Ifeoma's living room, barefoot, with candlelight. Tunde was the kind of man who made Ifeoma feel protected, and Ifeoma made Tunde feel alive. She was unpredictable. She made him laugh until his stomach hurt. And when she said I love you for the first time nervously, Tunde cupped her face and kissed her forehead, whispering, I love you too, Ify, more than you know. It was perfect, or so they thought. Tunde and Ifeoma had settled into a rhythm. Date nights turned into cozy evenings at home, wrapped up in each other's arms, whispering about their future. Ifeoma would lay on his chest, tracing invisible patterns on his skin. We'll have a house in Gwarimpa, she said one night. Big, with glass windows and a garden. And 3 kids, Tunde added, kissing her forehead. 2, she corrected, smiling. A boy and a girl. He chuckled, pulling her closer. Fine, but I get to name them. It felt like love was all they needed, but love alone was never enough. Tunde was always busy with work, supervising construction projects, attending endless site meetings. He started cancelling their plans last minute. Ifeoma understood until she couldn't. You promised we'll go out today, she pouted one evening, already dressed in a stunning gown. I know, babe, I'm sorry. The client called for an emergency site visit. He explained, already loosening his tie, exhausted. You always have an excuse, Tunde. It's work, Ify. What do you want me to do? Make time for me, she whispered, her voice heavy with disappointment. He sighed and reached for her, but she turned away. Ifeoma's business was booming. She started traveling more, attending fashion expos, meeting potential investors. Tunde was proud of her, but sometimes pride felt like a mask for something darker. One evening, she excitedly showed him a picture on her phone. See this designer from Lagos? He wants to collaborate with me. Tunde barely looked up from his laptop. Nice. Just nice, she frowned. This is huge, Tunde. I know Ifi, but must you always be everywhere? Lagos this week, Port Harcourt next week. When do we ever have time? So because I want to grow now, I should shrink myself for you. He exhaled sharply. That's not what I said. But that's what you mean, Ifeoma replied. That night, Ifeoma stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if love was supposed to feel this frustrating. One Sunday, they attended a wedding at a very big hotel in Abuja. The bride was a mutual friend, and the hall was dripping with gold decor and fairy lights. Love was in the air, but Ifeoma felt distant. During the vows, she stole a glance at Tunde. His face was unreadable. Later at the reception, she leaned in and whispered to him, "When will it be us?" Tunde sipped his drink. "When we're ready." "And when will that be?" she asked. "Why are you always in a hurry, Ify?" he questioned. "Because I want to know we are moving forward, not just running in circles," she replied. He set down his glass. "So now we are running in circles?" he questioned. "That's not what I mean," she stuttered. "Then what do you want?" His voice was sharp and irritated. Ifeoma swallowed hard. "I want you to fight for us." Tunde looked away and murmured, "Maybe I'm just tired of fighting." She didn't cry that night, but something inside her cracked. The year had started with love, but now love felt like a weight dragging them into a storm neither of them knew how to escape. By the third year, love had turned into something else, something heavy, something that sat in their chest like unspoken words. Tunde proposed on Ifeoma's 27th birthday. It should have been the happiest day of her life. They were at a rooftop restaurant in Maitama. A soft evening breeze played with her curls, and fairy lights twinkled above. When Tunde got down on one knee, gasps filled the air. "Marry me, Ify," he said, looking up at her with pleading eyes. Ifeoma's heart pounded, but not with excitement. Her heart pounded with fear. She should have been overjoyed. She should have screamed yes and jumped into his arms. But all she felt was doubt. Was this really what she wanted? But then she saw the hope in his eyes, the way he held his breath, waiting, and suddenly she was terrified of saying no. So she forced a smile and whispered yes. Cheers erupted. People clapped. The waiter brought champagne. Tunde slid the ring onto her finger, a beautiful sparkling diamond. She looked down at it and tried to feel happy, but she failed. Moving in together was supposed to bring them closer, but it didn't. At first, there were glimpses of the love they once had. Lazy Saturday mornings in bed, cooking dinner together, playing old school Afro beats while dancing in the living room. But beneath the surface, the tension was always there. Ifeoma's business was getting bigger than ever. She was now designing for celebrities, shipping orders across Nigeria. But with growth came late nights, constant travel, and endless phone calls. Tunde didn't understand. "Must you always be working?" he asked one night as she sat at the dining table sketching a new design. "Tunde, this is my job," she replied without looking up. "Your job is more important than me?" he questioned. She sighed, dropping her pencil. "That's not fair." "Fair?" he scoffed. "I come home to an empty house every day, Ify. You don't cook anymore. You barely talk to me. You're too busy playing boss lady. So now I should stop chasing my dreams because you feel neglected?" she snapped, standing up. "I just want my fiancée to act like she wants to be here." The words stung because deep down she wasn't sure she did. One evening, Ifeoma was getting ready for a business dinner when she heard Tunde on the phone. He was in the living room, his voice low but sharp. "I don't know what she wants anymore. Maybe she doesn't love me the way she used to." Then he sighed. "I just wish she would put me first for once." Ifeoma's stomach twisted. She leaned against the door frame, biting her lip. He wasn't wrong. She wasn't the same woman who used to leave little notes in his pocket. She wasn't the Ifeoma who used to hold his hand just because. She had changed, but so had he. She walked into the room, and Tunde quickly ended the call. Their eyes met. Who were you talking to? She asked. Just a friend, he muttered. A friend or someone you're complaining to about me. He exhaled. Ifeoma, I'm tired. I don't know how to fix this anymore. She crossed her arms. Maybe you don't want to. For the first time, neither of them had the energy to fight. Days turned into weeks, and the resentment grew like weeds in their home. They stopped having dinner together. They stopped saying I love you. Ifeoma worked late just to avoid him. Tunde started going out more with his friends. He stayed out late, sometimes not coming home until past midnight. He never said where he went, and Ifeoma stopped asking. One night, she found herself sitting on their bed, staring at her engagement ring. It sparkled under the light, but it felt heavy on her finger. She took it off just to see how it would feel. For the first time in years, she thought about what life would be like without Tunde. And for the first time, it didn't scare her. Regret was setting in, and neither of them knew how to stop it. By the fourth year, love was no longer enough. The once cozy apartment in Gwarimpa felt like a prison, its walls holding in all the words they didn't say. Ifeoma and Tunde had become strangers who shared a bed. They no longer kissed good morning. They no longer texted during the day. They no longer fought because fighting required effort and neither of them had any left to give. And then came the night everything changed. It was a Thursday. Ifeoma had just returned from a business trip to Lagos. She was exhausted, pulling her suitcase into the apartment, expecting the usual cold silence. But tonight, something was different. The living room was clean, too clean. Tunde's shoes weren't by the door. His laptop wasn't on the coffee table. The air smelled faintly of perfume, a woman's perfume. Ifeoma's heart pounded. She walked towards the bedroom, her breath shallow. The door was slightly open, and she heard it. Soft laughter, a woman's laughter. Her fingers trembled as she pushed the door open. Tunde was sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to her, his shirt slightly unbuttoned. A woman stood in front of him, fixing her hair in the mirror. A tall, light-skinned woman in a silk dress, her lipstick smudged. For a moment, nobody moved. Ifeoma's world blurred. Tunde, her voice was barely above a whisper. The woman turned, startled. Tunde, still seated, ran a hand down his face like a man who had been caught in a web of his own making. Ify, don't! Her voice was ice. The woman grabbed her purse and hurriedly left. Ifeoma turned back to Tunde, her chest rising and falling. How long? She asked, her voice shaking. Tunde didn't answer. I said how long? She screamed, stepping closer. He exhaled. It's not what you think. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Oh, really? Then please explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I'm thinking. Ifeoma's hands trembled, rage and heartbreak clashing inside her like a storm. You did this to us, her voice cracked. You let us rot, and now this? Tunde stood up slowly, towering over her. You think this is just me? His voice was shaky. You abandoned me long before I ever touched another woman. You were never here, Ifeoma, he continued, stepping closer. You were always somewhere else. Your business, your travels, your dreams. You left me in this house alone. What did you expect me to do? Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I expected you to fight for us, she replied. I did, his voice was sharp. For years I did. But you, he let out a bitter laugh. You were always one foot out the door. Ifeoma's throat tightened. So this is my fault? Tunde sighed, rubbing his face. He looked exhausted, like a man who had been drowning for too long. I don't know whose fault it is anymore, Ify. His voice was barely above a whisper. All I know is, I don't think we can fix this. For the first time, she believed him. There was nothing left but broken pieces, and an ending neither of them wanted to admit was coming. Their love had turned into something ugly. The apartment was silent, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that came after a storm, when all that remained were broken things and people too tired to pick up the pieces. Tunde and Ifeoma no longer spoke unless necessary. When they did, their words were cold, like strangers forced to live under the same roof. Tunde had stopped coming home some nights. Ifeoma had stopped asking where he went. She knew the answer, even if she didn't want to hear it. She should have left. She should have packed her bags, taken what was left of her dignity, and walked away. But she didn't. One night, she came home late from a fashion event. The house was dark except for the dim glow of the kitchen light. Tunde sat at the dining table, a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside him. His tie was loose, his sleeves rolled up. He looked like a man on the edge. You're back late, he said without looking up. Ifeoma dropped her paws on the couch. You would know more about coming home late, wouldn't you? He exhaled sharply, taking another sip of whiskey. She watched him for a moment, her heart heavy. Tunde, why are we still doing this? He let out a tired laugh. I've been asking myself the same thing. She hesitated. Do you still love me? He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the glass in his hand, watching the amber liquid swirl. I don't know, he finally said. Do you? Her throat tightened. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to say no. But the truth sat between them like a wound that refused to heal. I don't know either. And that was the worst part. Not hate, not anger, just emptiness. The final blow came a week later. Ifeoma found the envelope on the bed, a single sheet of paper inside. Tunde Oladipo and Ifeoma Okeke, termination of tenancy agreement. Her heart stopped. She rushed into the living room, her hands shaking. What is this? Tunde stood by the window, his back to her. It's over, Ify. She felt the words hit her chest like a punch. So that's it? After everything? He turned, his eyes dark with exhaustion. What else is left? Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You didn't even have the decency to talk to me? We've done nothing but talk, Ifeoma, for years, and look where we are. I could have tried harder, she cried. So could I, Tunde replied. As he stepped closer, his voice softer now. I'll move out next week. This place is yours. She swallowed the lump in her throat. I don't want it. Then sell it. She stared at him, searching for something, anything to hold on to. But there was nothing left. Just memories of a love that had once been beautiful. A love that had died right in front of them. Ifeoma took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she placed the envelope back on the table. Goodbye, Tunde. She walked past him, not looking back. And this time, she didn't hesitate.